simplest terms, Prohibition
Sounds
was a
good.
ban on the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcohol, as codified by the 18th Amendment in 1919. But it was part of a 70-year-long movement to rid the United States of the threat of dealing rum.
It is befuddling the thinking of humanity.
Many people blame social problems like crime on alcohol. Groups like the American Temperance Union pushed states to pass laws banning the sale of alcohol. By 1900, these temperance groups still had not succeeded in getting the federal government to ban alcohol, so they took action in their own hands. Women like Carrie Nation would carry around axes and make raids on breweries, smashing up barrels of alcohol.
Fighting booze. Carrie Nation and his hatchet.
By World War I, popular support grew for Prohibition based on three factors. As U.S. troops began to flood into the military, there was a great concern that the new recruits were going to be tempted by the evil of alcohol. Secondly, there was an argument that the United States needed to conserve grain that had been used in the brewing process. And third, there was an anti-German sentiment against the beer manufacturers. By 1919, the forces behind the Prohibition movement secured the ratification of the 18th Amendment, banning the sale of alcohol.
Strong men are weeping, and dry throats cry out in anguish.
Now, the Prohibition activists had hoped that banning the sale of alcohol would decrease crime, but in many cases it actually had the opposite effect. There still was a huge demand for alcohol, and mafia operations created multi-million-dollar business enterprises bringing in alcohol illegally into the United States to supply illegal bars, speakeasies. Ultimately, it was the Great Depression that did in Prohibition. People began to argue that we could help out the farmers by allowing them to sell their grains for the purpose of making alcohol. Also, the federal government realized they could get lots of tax revenue by taxing alcohol. And so, in 1933, the federal government ratified the 21st Amendment, allowing the sale and distribution of alcohol. For better or for worse, Americans could once again take a drink.
Number 29, Warren G. Harding, Republican, 1921 to 1923, 55 years old, from Ohio. Warren Harding is the only president to be elected on his birthday. In his successful campaign, he touted a return to normalcy.
We're not going to do anything big and ambitious. We're going to create a period in which things are quiet and calm.
A former newspaperman, Harding was the 7th president born in the state of Ohio. No one ever accused him of being a cold fish. He was an extrovert, a gambler, a drinker, and allegedly a womanizer. Harding has been portrayed as someone who wasn't fit to be president, that he lacked intellect and ambition.
People will say that he didn't want to be president or that he didn't have the self-confidence to do it. He did want to be president. He was a savvy man in his politics, and he did have a very strong sense for what he wanted to accomplish.
Harding wasn't the type of president who thought he had all the answers.
Mr. Harding said that he was inviting the best minds into the cabinet. In a very real sense, this was the case. His Secretary of State was Charles Evans Hughes, who was a distinguished man. His Secretary of Commerce was Herbert Hoover. This was a good cabinet.
In the summer of 1923, Harding took a train trip west, becoming the first sitting president to visit Alaska. But his health was failing. On July 29th, he arrived at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco and checked into the presidential suite to recuperate. 4 days later, with his wife Florence at his bedside, the president suffered a heart attack. Florence pleaded with the doctors to save him, but it was too late. Harding was dead.